I'm Okina Blue, and this is the Anime Roundtable, the stream edition on this Monday morning, March the 2nd, 2026. Good morning. Overlooking 6 points, 10 minutes south of the Anime North compound in Toronto's West End. I'm Mike. Okay, let me just get this part out of the way, and then we'll start getting to the pleasantries. We have pretty much failed. We didn't really do too much in February, aside from 2 recordings. So we did meet quota in that sense, in the sense that we were able to do a couple of recordings, just a space heater with Mo done over the phone, really badly done, and then a regular episode 99. But we didn't do any streams, so in that sense, February was a failure. Much like any hockey team wearing a maple leaf. Too soon, I know. Okay. Yeah, the Olympics came and went, and that was a mixed bag if you're a Canadian. But anyway, I know we like talking about a little bit about the Olympics. We have in the past, Mo and I. But maybe there isn't much to be seen, and that's really not the heart of what we're talking about today. Just quickly, as you can see, I'm wearing the wireless mic for today's show. Let me know if you're anybody who's in the chat. Well, there's frankly nobody in the chat because this is kind of a little bit of a, how do you put it? A little bit of an impromptu and on impulse. Just going to let friends know that I'm doing it now. So as you can see, I put away the regular boom mics for this morning. And truth be told, it's already late in the morning. What is it? About just after 11:30 here, Toronto time. Probably won't. The plan is not to be too long, maybe no more than half an hour. I'm hoping no more than an hour, but we'll try and keep it to about half an hour. And I got the timer going here. So I'm just letting the others know that I'm streaming now as well. A fair amount to talk about in terms of both the headlines and looking back. As the title mentioned, today is the 20th anniversary of this podcast, of the Anime Roundtable podcast. So on this date, on the evening of March 2nd, 2006, that was a Thursday. And I decided to start a small project, wondering if this could be any good. Iron X Girl, hi Mike, happy 20th anniversary, thank you. And let me quickly give a shout out to Iron X Girl because Iron X Girl is a longtime follower of this podcast in its various incarnations, and she actually sat watching the very first recording we did on this day 20 years ago. It was at a Yama show, so one of the oldest anime clubs, one of the oldest surviving anime clubs based in universities, is based in York University here in the northern part of Toronto. We taped that show at York University during one of their Thursday evening gatherings, a showing they had. We taped it in a classroom across the hall from where they were having that showing. They were nice enough to vouch for us, to get the classroom for us, and we set up the equipment. Let me show you one piece of that equipment. Well, this is a updated version of the microphone we used at the time because the original one of the original microphones broke. The others are now in storage. But this is what our microphones at the time looked like. And if it looks familiar, yes, it is the logo. This microphone serves as the show's logo. And I'd been using this one, which we brought back for version 2, which I bought for version 2 as we started back in 2018. But it's not really used now. So I thought but it's been sitting here to the side since I stopped using it, and we used it during the streams here. But these weren't used at a point for the podcast because we bought a set of Shure mics. But we used microphones like this that day, and some very, very heavy microphone stands as depicted in the logo. And we had 4 of them, but we only had 3 around the table. That day we talked, it was just James and Neil. And it was a very, we just sat around, and funny enough, the episode was under 1 hour. Who would have thunk it would have been under an hour? I just realized my timer's not working here. Let me just see if I can get that to work. I thought it was a minor miracle that looking back, it was a minor miracle that we were able to get the show roughly an hour, considering episodes can these days tend to go over 2 hours. I guess that's the power of being able to have done the show as consistently as we did at the time. Because we did 3, the way it ended up going is we test ran 3 episodes in March of 2006, took a 6-month hiatus, and then returned in the fall. And pretty much were a weekly show for a good chunk of version 1. Neil and James, as I mentioned, Neil Sinclair, James Austin were on the mics for that very first episode, and it was actually a not bad discussion. Okay, let me back up. The whole idea with Anime Roundtable was just to have a conversation about things that were going on in terms of anime and manga, in terms of the industry, and things that were picked up, like all the issues that were going on in the business and and obviously at the time, and it's still sort of an issue now, subject matter and censorship issues. And that was at the heart of the very first episode, because we talked about the perceptions of anime and manga and more mature titles in terms of how it would be handled by Canadian customs. And that at the time, they weren't really differentiating between the terms anime and hentai. We talked about licenses at the time, which on that note, titles that are ancient now, like Rumbling Hearts or Crayon Shin-chan, were mentioned as being picked up at the time. And then we had and some manga titles. I think Mega Tokyo had reached another publisher at that point. And then we talked about live actions. So maybe the more things change, the more things stay the same. But we wanted to talk about the industry, just basically those type of things, the business of anime and the industry at large, and its impact on subjects like censorship and culture, especially in where they're shown. And we want to set a more of a, let's say, calmer tone. Less talk about titles and more talk about, the business. And we want to keep a good tone. And my inspiration, and obviously much of this is my own doing, the inspiration for much of the podcast was a lot of sport debate talk shows at the time. I never hit it in the podcast run, but maybe I should go into a little bit more detail now. So shows like ESPN, the Sports Reporters, the Canadian counterpart of that show, which was called TSN, the Reporters with Dave Hodge, and Primetime Sports, the Roundtable segments with Bob McCown. And actually, the logo holds an actual shout out to Bob McCown with the sunglasses draped on the shock mount, since Bob McCown was in the habit of wearing sunglasses at the time, and actually still kind of does by all accounts. But yeah, that was the intention. Most of the conversations, and I thought in the years leading up, in the 10 years that I was a fan leading up to then, I had long conversations at anime clubs like Utarpa, which was the forerunner, which by the way was the forerunner in many respects to Anime North, because many of the key people in Anime North were regulars at Utarpa. So, and actually helped run the monthly shows that happened there at at the Michener Institute where I was going, which was also where the first Anime North took place. Conversations with store owners, with comic book store owners like the Comic Den and Cyber City, having conversations with them and about how anime and manga was starting to fit into their business and their perceptions of how things were going, especially since they were very much in the Western comic book business, and see how that was going to, and our guesses as to seeing how that it would evolve at that point. And I thought the conversations were just interesting to me, and I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to share those type of conversations with a wider audience? And at the time, 20 years ago, podcast was very much in its infancy. PodCamp Toronto, by the way, just passed. I didn't have a chance to go to that, but obviously, if you want a sense as to how much the industry, the podcast scene has evolved since in 20 years, and I fully admit I've probably been left behind through much of it. You can really just think about it in those senses. Anyway, that was the inspiration for the episode, and I just told you we talked a bit about censorship issues, customs issues, pickups, live actions, and we talked about live actions that were announced at the time, and I think much like in recent times, back then we were cringing at some of the thoughts that could happen. And maybe sadly, some of it hasn't changed. I did, as I said, in the re-listen. I only re-listened to it just as I was setting up the everything behind, or setting up the rig here for this morning. Geez, I don't even know how long we're going now. 14 minutes? Okay, cool. The timer here, the battery died, so I think I'll just have to freeform it and wait until the 1 hour mark or something. Anyway, that was pretty much the first episode. I looked back on some of the like listening to it, and and it's worth listening to because, truth be told, the episode sounded horrible. For a theme song, I just used some loops in GarageBand and sound effects there. And then that's pretty much how the first 3 episodes sounded. When we brought the show back for episode 4, GarageBand, which we were using at the time, went over a complete overhaul. It made things easier to record. It added some jingles, and we worked, and it sounded a lot better, at least from that point. And we've had to evolve the sound, and we learned a few things over the years. During the show's version 1 run from 2006 to 2009, and then one episode in 10, and a few things in 2010, and then when we brought it back for version 2, really 8 years ago this month, back in 2018, you'll get a chance to at least have a sense of how things have changed both in the industry and how we handled the show. Anyway, let me just quickly show you something. I did mention the podcast a little bit, or at least the first episode. Oops. Oh, we don't get the. Give me a sec here. Oh yeah, picked a good time to not work, huh? I can't get the. I can't seem to get the. Give me a sec here. Give me a sec. Sure, picked a good time not to work. Oh, well. Anyway, I picked a good time for the properties here not to work. Give me a second. Let me see if I can get this to work, okay? Yeah, it's just weird that we couldn't get it to work properly. Yeah, that might work. Okay. That might work just a little bit better. There you go. There, the first episode. There's the first episode. There's the little blurb we did for the very first episode on our now almost pretty much abandoned WordPress site. Uh, Quick thing, if you look on our link tree on animeroundtable.com, Mo has been updating or had been working on a small project for, and pretty much has put up there's a beta of a new version of our blog, and basically it self-updates every time I put up an episode. So he's designed it so that every time I put up a new episode on the podcast feed, it'll self-update. But this is pretty much a broken WordPress site. But there's our first episode right there. Anyway, just oops. But there's a thought, just something to kind of think about right there. What we talked about in that very first episode. Yeah, it's just been one of those things. I'll also tell you some of the mentality I had in bringing on some of the people we've brought on, especially in that very first episode. Really, when I started, I wanted people to start to know Neil. Neil, over the in leading up to this first episode and the years before that, was just a fun guy to talk to, and he could always he was never short of an opinion, and I thought I want to introduce that to a wider audience. And in many ways, it worked whenever he was able to come on. Obviously, time hasn't been on our side in that sense, and Neil wasn't on as nearly as much. James was a nice counterbalance because he was into knowing the types of conversations I was. He often joined in the conversations we had with Terry and Anthony at Comic Den with the Visser brothers, and his background just said he would know a lot about what happens behind the scenes on the business side. And he's the constant throughout all of the 20 years with me. And as you can, and if you've listened to the episodes enough, you know just how not connected, because he doesn't directly talk to anybody, but he certainly keeps up and uses that his professional mind to be able to understand what's been going on there. Both so he can talk as both a fan as a professional in being able to keep up with the accounting and business sides of anime. During version 1, I guess I'll single out some of the other people we eventually brought on. Courtney St. John, who was the first female we had on the show, first girl, and that's basically that was part of the show. I remember just saying after we finished the first episode, a friend who was listening, who watched us tape, just simply said, "It's just a sausage party," and that we should try and get more women on the show, which I always agreed with anyway. It's just that's how the first episode turned out. Courtney came on and was present for much of version 1. We haven't had her on since, but we do. I personally haven't had a chance to talk to her in some time, but I know Neil is regularly in touch with her, and mutual friends do talk with her. I am told she is doing well, and maybe I hope to talk with her myself again in the near future. Adam Grant. There isn't much to say about Adam Grant, especially if you remember him in version 1. Outrageous. Will say just about anything and can back it up. And that's his legal mind really talking there. Adam, I can tell you again, he has 2 kids. Is happily married and last check a partner in a law firm, and fights other battles now. So that's what I can say about Adam. Mo, Amy, Kevin, you already know about. They're our mainstays here in the version 2 run of this show. And that's about as much as I would want to talk about. I'm glad we've been able to. I mean, it's a small shame we weren't around for a period, for a good chunk in the early 2010s, or for much of the 2010s. But I'm glad we were also able to bring it back and be able to do the show, or continue doing the show. As I said, the more things change, the more things stay the same. If there's one thing I do want to say about the end of the first episode is we all had parting shots. And I re-listened to the episode earlier, or just in the last hour, and maybe I wanted to listen to it again because I listened to it at 2x speed. But if there's one thing I did want to mention, and just let me check my chat here, of which there is none. In the parting shot last night, or in that episode, I gave a shout out to two of my colleagues, Judy and Fred, who had just had a kid. Their daughter was had just been born less than a month or just weeks before that very first episode. Judy and Fred, I know, are no longer together and are now with other and have both since moved on and are in other relationships. But they both care very greatly for their daughter who recently turned 20. So congratulations and happy birthday to her. I mentioned in that little spiel how I hooked them onto Kenshin, and that during their wedding at the time, a friend had a shishio tattoo done. It's just sad how things. Once again, the more things change, the more they stay the same. It's just so interesting how the Kenshin story and and that of its creator have kind of gone over recent times. So, and I guess that serves as an excellent segue for the things we're going to talk about now. Let's go through the headlines, and then I'll tell you the plans for March as we celebrate the 20th anniversary here. But needless to say, there's stuff in the last couple days to really talk about. On the note of somebody like Watsuki, sadly there is a lot to talk about. I'm sure many of you know. Late last week, there was a big scandal with Shogakukan when it was revealed, when court documents revealed that one of their
How do you know if your
one of their mangaka, Yamamoto Shoichi, who is the author of Dakuten Sakusen, was arrested back roughly 6 years ago for sexual assault of a high school girl. And his titles at the time were conveniently put on hiatus. The court documents registered his conviction of those, and then other things were revealed in the process over that. The first title was canceled. Dakuten was canceled after his arrest in 2020, but they kind of covered up why. But a couple of years later, he was rehired under a pen name and worked on a new title. And many of the same people who were with him at the time, who his bosses at Shogakukan, rehired him. And that's at the heart of this scandal, that he was brought back on, and that it was covered up, and that there was some hush money, that there might have been some hush money given to the victim as well. So that's at the heart of this scandal. And this is blowing up pretty good. As mentioned in this headline by Polygon, manga artists have pulled their works from Shogakukan's online site, Manga One, and amongst them are the author of One Punch Man and Mob Psycho, Rumiko Takahashi has pulled her titles, and so has So has Kanehito Yamada, the creator of Freein. The list is going on and on. And I know that the online reaction has been pretty vicious, as it should be. It harkens back to the whole Act Age and the aforementioned Watsuki scandals. So, for the most part, Shogakukan, aside from the apology statements within, there hasn't been much else said from them. But the scandal has taken another turn in the last couple hours, or at least overnight. Word is starting to come out, and I'm just going to try and get this. I just want to try and get my stuff a little bit more in play here. Word is starting to come out that Shogakukan over the past couple years had also hired Tatsuya Matsuki, the creator of Act Age, under an assumed name for some titles. So, yeah, if this is true, and a friend of mine and my Japanese friends who have read the Japanese language reports on this, they're the ones who pass it on to me. This hasn't been as widely mentioned in English just yet, but if I were to check, if I were to check, well, let me just quickly look at this. Well, nothing's been mentioned too much in English media concerning this revelation, aside from some blurbs. There isn't, but this controversy, this scandal gets from bad to worse if that's the case. Because we don't need to say too much else. Like anybody in the know, we really do not need to say too much about the creator of Act Age. So this is going to be this story, and the 15 minutes or the 24-hour news cycle on this one has nicely increased to maybe 40 by another at least 24, maybe 48, 72. This is going to be one of the stories that keeps on giving. You think within the industry, you think we would have learned just a little bit more, just a little bit after Act Age and Watsuki before that. You thought we would have learned just a little bit more after the Johnny's Associates scandal and the Fuji TV scandal. Those are big in scale because that's as mainstream, especially the Fuji TV thing, the Fuji TV controversy. That's as big as it gets because that's very much a mainstream thing. And I'm sure the 8-hour apology news conference by Fuji TV execs would have been quite the thing to watch. It would be nice if we had such a news conference with Shogakukan, but I'm not holding my breath on something that vicious. Although more and more, my understanding is more and more manga creators have been pulling their works, who have works on the Manga One platform, have been pulling their works steadily over as the weekend and the last number of days have gone on, and I couldn't blame them. Anyway, that's a story we'll be keeping up with. Hopefully, when when the roundtable reassembles, we'll have a further updates and thoughts to share, especially with the others around the table. Okay, let's get on to some, from scandal to some just a little bit of sad news. Word came out this morning that the president of Kyoto Animation, Hata Hideki, passed away at the age of 76. There's a picture of the statement released by KyoAni. Don't know if we have a picture of him. Sorry, I picked the worst possible article to use. But let me just. But I think if we're talking about him and all the things that Kyoto Animation has gone through over the last little while, let's put this picture up. There you go. With the fire, with the arson attack and the stuff that just went over with that, and yeah, this is obviously sad news for other sad to hear. There's really not much else to add. Obviously, in terms of Kyoto Animation, there isn't really like all the stuff that they do, whether it's Haruhi or Clannad. I don't know what other we can list the titles, right? We can list the other titles. What other titles can we add to that, right? Let me just let's put that up now. Some of the stuff. Let's put up some of the stuff that they have done according to Wiki, right? Violet Evergarden. That's the one title I forgot that I really wanted to mention there. But that's just a really sad story to hear about. That the president and CEO of Kyoto Animation has passed away. So Hideki Hata was 76 years old. James made us aware of this little ditty over the last overnight. Mediadu International will acquire 7 Seas. That was announced overnight by our friend William Moo, as you can see here. This is our friend William Moo with Anime Trending. This is his article. There's other stuff, but this has been announced over the last 24 hours. So 7 Seas has sold to Mediadu Entertainment or Mediadu International, which is so it becomes very like it sells to a Japanese firm as well. So we'll. James, I know this caught his attention. I'm still wrapping my head around it and seeing what this will really do and how much this will move the needle. 7 Seas was the last real independent English language publisher in North America of manga and light novels. And so now every single one of the major publishers has a Japanese company tie. So let's see how this moves the needle. Maybe it could be good, it could be bad. Most of the time, I know we can get really cynical about those type of things. So, especially since with the whole Paramount Warner Brothers Netflix deal, with Paramount apparently finally winning out on that one. But that's something else that caught my attention. And just for the sake of bringing it up, but I know we should mention it a little bit more, the 30th, on the topic of anniversaries, the 30th anniversary of Neon Genesis Evangelion, I know the talk of the last couple weeks has been a one-shot video that's been presented, and you'll probably never see again, that kind of reimagines what Asuka's life could have been. And that there's a lot of cease and desists for reposting it, and that it'll not be available on any streaming services. And many people want to see what this would have been about, myself included. But I don't know how many what I wasn't aware of was that during all of that, a new Eva series is also in production. So this is, as I said, something that I wasn't personally aware of. So I want to wrap my head around this as I learn more, and maybe that'll come up. So those are some of the headlines that have caught my attention. Today, this morning, as we celebrate the 20th anniversary of this podcast. Iron X Girl says, one memory I have many years ago was an episode emphasizing wanting a first exposure back when anime was rarely on television and could only be experienced by buying it on physical media or surfing the 7 seas. I thought it was a very strong point, so always remembered it since then. And she mentioned she didn't know about the scandal. Gabby the Rabbit, happy 20th anniversary. Thank you, Gabby. And if Yoko Taro is really penning the script for the new Evangelion series, I'll have to check it out sometime. I think people will want to check out this new Evangelion series for many different reasons. So we'll see what the thought is there. In terms of first exposure, I guess that's a sign of how much things have changed with streaming services and releases and near simultaneous or quick releases from Japan. In many respects, we've gotten close to what we've wanted, but looking back on it, I know some people are still unhappy. So I don't know. Some people there's a lot of unhappiness, I guess, in that sense, right? So that's worth something. And I guess since much of the streaming is very, very funneled and is very, it seems to be it seems to be through very few sources these days. That's what makes the story a little bit more, or what's happened in the last 20 years, different, right? But also keep in mind, when we were talking in that very first episode about, and by the way, let me know how I sound Iron X and Gabby. When we were talking the pickups, the licenses in the episode, in that very first episode, we were talking only maybe at most a dozen at the time, and that had been over months. Now we're talking a lot more in some respects, but sometimes you wonder if it's enough, or if there's been a bit of a downturn in terms of releases. But I think to illustrate this, or just to hammer this point in, it's a lot more than what we were seeing in 2006. We might have been in a slight downturn compared to, say, the last decade or since pandemic times. But it's a lot more there's a lot more going on than there ever had been. So, and I do wonder, and this is a line from that very first episode. I do think about how many fans back then are treating it as parents now, right? And how much they are still fans. I think we've come a long way. That anime isn't the niche form and the niche form of entertainment that it used to be, and our fandom obviously has only grown, and dare I say exponentially. So to try and say nothing, or to try and prevent anime fandom from becoming any more popular is kind of a fool's thing, especially since we're so much more connected than we used to be. So now you have to just control it within. Maybe that's another story in and of itself, and I get the feeling Neil would want to speak to that. But there's some of the thoughts on the 20th anniversary. The plans immediately for the 20th anniversary, aside from hopefully getting a second stream in March, yes, we do plan the actual 100th episode of version 2. Hopefully that'll be taped this week. We just want to gather a few more thoughts. In an ideal world, Neil will be included in that, but we're starting to come to the conclusion he may not be available to actually do the 100th episode. But we are working to still get him on sometime this month, even if it's just a space heater chat. I'm just going to let you in that Neil has been going through his own things and having to other things to see to. So it's a case of just being able to get our schedules to mesh. So that's the story for Neil, and hopefully we'll get him on soon. Let me see. Amethyst Stylac, I know you're watching as well. Thanks for popping in. Hero Harmony, I know, is probably sleeping, but is always lurking. Your volume sounds fine. If you're talking about episode frequency of the podcast, you are all 20 years older, so everybody likely has other things going on. Amen. I probably have to end soon because I have to go to work in a couple hours. Anyway, I'll leave it. Anyway, those are the plans. We'll just try and tape a little bit more. We'll try and do a stream. Chances are it's not much. We won't have too much to talk about. I know Yakuza 3 Kiwami is now out there. That'll be the next Yakuza game we play, but it may not be necessarily the next game we play. And I just don't know when we'll have time to do that. Or put together a Lego set, which is sitting over there. Current reads. Current reads. I don't have too much to really add at the moment. In terms of current reads, I will add, I will add that presently, over the last couple days, I had read volume 8 of the Fragrant Flower, Blooms with Dignity. And as you can see, it was electronic. I do have volume 9 on me. So electronically now, so that's my next read. Light novel wise, I am in the middle of volume 3 of the light novel version of Falling for Her Secret Side. So those are my current reads right now. I haven't watched much anime. I haven't had much time to. Things are just that busy, but I'll try to, and I'll let you know about that as we go on. Many recommendations have been given to me. Really, there isn't much else to add. I just want to touch base and at least get a stream in for March because, as I said, just never got around to it in February. But that's as much as we got. So if you've reached the end of this video, thanks a lot for doing so. Give us a thumbs up. It'll greatly help us if you're seeing this on YouTube, because we are presently doing this on YouTube. Get in touch with us at Anime Roundtable on our various social platforms, because whatever it is, whether it's X, Instagram, even Blue Sky, we probably have the handle at Anime Roundtable. Also, if you're also give us a follow on Twitch, a subscribe on YouTube, and on the podcast side, bookmark that so you know when we're about to do something else. As I said, it's just a chance to have something to drink and catch up in the morning as we get to 12 o'clock, as we get to basically past noon. That's as much as I got today. So thanks for spending a little bit of time. Hey, look, this will be under the time time of the first episode of Anime Roundtable. Give that a listen. See, and give some of the past. If you have time, give some past episodes a listen. See how much things have changed, and you can see how much we had it wrong. I'm curious to know how much we had it wrong. Maybe I'll listen to a couple of the old episodes, add to the stats. And we'll come back and reassess that later in the next episode. Maybe a bit later this week. Stay tuned for that. I'll talk to you then. And have a good afternoon and, join us again. Later.